Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. P, Dominique Padurano, and this is episode 3 of my college app countdown course. It's a couple of minutes before 9, I know, so I will just let people stream in. And if you watched episode 2, please do go get your notes from last week, and whether it was on laptop or notebook, feel free to go run and get them. And if you're just joining in while those other folks are getting their stuff, I'll just introduce myself a little bit. So I am the founder and head coach of Crimson Coaching, a private tutoring, test prep, and college application consultancy based here in New York City, which I founded in 2014 after being a high school teacher for on and off for almost 20 years. I decided that I wanted to work more closely with students to give them more of an opportunity to learn from me one-on-one. And I began teaching small classes dedicated to the college essay because it's something that occupies such a large percentage of students' lives in between the junior and senior years. But it quickly became apparent that many students aren't able to get to the class because they live far away or because their athletic or other extracurricular activities interfere with that. So I thought this year I would use the power of Facebook Live to bring a very modified version of what I do in that class online. So as people are starting to stream in, and hello Lauren Padurano, Milowitz in Florida, I will just kind of have students recall episode 2. So you'll remember that last week was our R&B week. We read and brainstormed all of our common app prompts. This week we are doing a CD week. We're choosing and drafting our first common app personal statement. So every week, every student in this course will get one and only one thing to worry about, because I know that applying to college is often an overwhelming task, and students, just think, oh my God, there's so much to do. So I'm kind of breaking it down step by step. So this week, we're just going to choose, first of all, which are our best 2 brainstorm lists. Now, sometimes it's easy and this just jumps out to you. Other times it's a little bit harder. And so what I suggest doing is sharing your list with a trusted friend, an adult, like your parent, a guidance counselor, and asking them which 2 of these essays best illustrate who I am and who colleges would want to see, or what they would want to see from me. And once you figure that out, and you're not going to figure that out within the next 10 seconds, so this will be during the week you're going to do this. Once you have figured that out, though, I'd like you to then think about the D part, or the drafting part of this process. And so when you do that, I want you to think of yourself as the Anna DuVernay or Damien Chazelle of your own life. That is, you're not going to be making the film Selma or La La Land, but you're going to think about trying to present your life in an interesting way that isn't necessarily bound by chronology. So for example, you could start at the very end, or the incident that happened last, work your way back at some point, and then towards the end of the essay return to the end to show some sort of growth. That could be something, a nice technique you could do. You also might want to think about incorporating dialogue to kind of jazz it up and illustrate those points that you're trying to make even more. So really think about having fun with this. It's not like an essay that you would write for history or English necessarily. This is something that's more creative. Most importantly, I don't want you to feel constrained by the word count. You know that you have to write for your final draft between 250 and 650 words. That's great for the final draft, but right now, if you want to write 1,000 words, excellent. In later weeks, the course will cover how to cut those things down. Perfect. But for now, try to write, I would say, as much as you can. The one time when you might want to be constrained by that word count, though, is if you're really struggling to come up with 250 words, then that might be a sign that that's not the right prompt for you. And so you might want to go on and try a different essay prompt to get your creative juices flowing more, and perhaps you'll have more luck with another essay. So I would say in general, think about a very bare minimum for this first draft as being around 350 words. If you're still struggling even after last week's brainstorming exercise, I want to give you what I hope are some encouraging, liberating words, and that is, don't think that you need to sound like someone like my age, and that you need to use all these big words. The college admissions officers know and expect that you are 16 or 17 years old. They're not expecting you to sound like someone in her 40s. So I would say use the language that you would normally write in, not necessarily that you would normally talk in with your friends, but definitely don't be afraid to write about something that you are passionate about. That's what they really want to know. They want to know who you are. And then the last kind of rule of thumb that I would share with you is that you just try to answer one specific prompt in one way, and that is, don't try to answer two prompts in one question, which I've seen students do before. And even if you are just answering one question, for instance, if you're choosing question 4, don't talk about 7 problems that you'd like to solve. Talk about just one and go deep into how you would solve that problem. If you're doing question 2, don't talk about, for example, the crisis in faith you experienced before you received your confirmation, as well as almost failing pre-calculus last year. Okay? Those are very different things that most likely are not related to one another. If they are, then I guess you could write about them. But if they're not related, keep them. Choose just one big idea about yourself to write in and go deep to illustrate that in several different ways. That will be a much more enticing read for the college application office, for the college admissions officer rather, than talking about 7 different things at once. So I know I've given you a lot to think about for this week. However, I do want you to finish that first draft of one essay by the time we meet next week. Now, an important thing about next week's course is that I will actually be teaching that course that I mentioned, that College App Bootcamp class at the Larchmont Mamaroneck Center for Continuing Ed starting on Monday during this time slot. So I will have to teach the Facebook Live course that you're listening to right now at 6 p.m. rather than at 9 p.m. So if you're not able to catch it live, that's okay. That, like all of the episodes, including this one, will be on the Crimson Coaching Facebook page for you to catch later. And if you found them helpful, of course, please, I would be so happy if you would share them with your own network. My goal here is not to make money because I'm sharing this information with you for free. It's really to help as many students as possible. And of course, if you have any particular questions or problems that you need solved, you can always message me on Facebook here, or you can email me at info@crimsoncoaching.com to ask me a question that's not broadcast to the rest of the world. And if you'd like information on that course that I mentioned, or on the private coaching that I do with students one-on-one, both online and here in person in the New York metropolitan area, you can always go on my website, which is www.crimsoncoaching.com. And so I will sign off for now then. So until next time, I am Dr. P, Dominique Padurano, founder and head coach of Crimson Coaching. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.